The landscape of sports and broadcasting in the Gulf South changed forever in 2002. On October 28th, Cox Communications launched Louisiana's first and only 24-hour sports network, CST. For 15 years, CST delivered more than just games to the devoted fans of America's Third Coast. It provided insight that came from being in the trenches with the area's teams, all while weathering hurricanes, team turbulence, and seismic shifts in sports programming. These are the moments and the magic that have molded the collective memories of the first 15 years of CST.
And a successful return of the NBA to the Crescent City of New Orleans.
You feel like they're our hometown, group. They're the ones that can really communicate, I think, a great message to the fans.
As your New Orleans Saints have captured Super Bowl 44.
Congratulations, world champion.
I like the sound of that. I love the sound of that.
Everybody knew CST. You're going to be calling for CST. And that was exciting.
Russell looking. Russell throwing. Russell gets his man. Touchdown. Touchdown LSU. Touchdown. Early Doucette. My goodness. Can you believe what you just saw?
I can promise you almost every LSU football player watched CST's replay of the game on Sundays because it's before we saw the coaches tape.
Congratulations to the LSU Tigers.
There were always interesting stories, and I'm sure one of these days we'll share some of those, but there are several people that still have to die before we can tell them.
CST just deserves so much credit over this last 15-year period. It's just hard to imagine what it would have been like without them, I'll say. It wouldn't have been as good.
Hey, remember how we got here today? Because we smelled greatness, because we wanted to be special.
January 24th, 2010 in New Orleans.
Welcome to the NFC Championship game.
CST bears witness to the muting of a team's past as a new chant grows louder.
I don't think I've ever been as nervous for a game, in the game, as I was toward the end of that.
There were so many moments in that game we thought the Saints were going to lose. And I think if you're a Saints fan, growing up for all the hard times, you have that in the back of your mind, oh, we're going to lose this one. Oh, this is going to be the one that's going to cost us the game.
It was back and forth. We had our chances. They're marching toward the end of the game, and probably just out of field goal range.
And it's intercepted. This is Tracy Porter with 7 seconds remaining in regulation.
And Tracy Porter makes a great interception, and it goes to overtime.
Here we are, overtime against the Vikings, and just knowing that we got to get close enough, and Hartley will get the opportunity to win it for us. Ironically, we end up in just about the exact same location as we had been 2 weeks prior or 3 weeks prior, when he had that same kick to win the game against Tampa, and we had missed it. Sure enough, here we end up in that spot, but it was just, man, there was something about it, maybe a little bit of a divine intervention, that we end up right on that spot.
Garrett, our rookie kicker, rolls out there and makes the biggest kick in the history of the Saints, really.
And it's good! It's good!
This is our moment. We're heading to the Super Bowl, and right down the middle. If you interviewed Hartley, he'd tell you he had a dream the night before that he was in that exact same spot and he made that kick.
They're holding the local media in one area by the tunnel of the entrance. The Benson family is walking in to the field, and obviously beyond the local media, I just kind of hooked up next to the Bensons. They had a small entourage and walked right onto the field. So I'm there. Now I've got to find a CST cameraman, and I did, and we immediately had Hartley. Here comes Garrett Hartley. How you feeling, my friend?
Pretty good, not gonna lie. It was funny, I called my dad at 2 a.m. I told him I had a dream, I hit the game winner, and things just played out that game. It's so crazy, and I'm just so happy for the guys. We've earned it just for the right to play there, I can't wait for 2 weeks to come.
You know Coach Childress was going to ice you. You get the chance. You go ahead and nail it. What were you thinking when you lined up for it?
I was kind of thinking, what's it going to be like in Miami? Like, honestly, like, I had the dream, things were playing out. I had the confidence, the coach had the confidence. Going out there on the field, there wasn't a doubt in my mind I wasn't going to make that kick.
And when Garrett Hartley gets up there and kicks that, sent this franchise to a place they've never been before and erased a lot of the feelings that Saints fans have had for years, like, oh, this is going to cost us this or this is going to cost us that. No, we're going to the Super Bowl.
I mean, it's just sheer pandemonium, though. You know, it makes the kick, and everybody rushes to the field, and it's craziness, and there's confetti, and you know, they're handing out the NFC Championship trophy, and you know, we're all getting on the mic and just talking to the fans, and man, it was incredible.
It's just the reaction of, you know, the fans in the stand was incredible. Much less the reaction of our own players and coaches and our staff and ownership.
There was a slightly different reaction in the CST studios.
On the chance that they win and we're going to Miami, we're already wearing Hawaiian shirts just to look Florida-ish and like we're going on vacation, and we're all standing by a monitor waiting to watch that kick. And when that kick went through, we were on a dead sprint from the back of the studio into the studio, and within 5 minutes we were breaking onto the air.
We're going to Miami.
You're coming with.
Yes.
With Paul Crane, I'm Victor Howell. Welcome to this special edition of Saints Tonight.
The best moment for me, Jimmy Buffett's walking up, and he has a drink in his hand. And I'm just getting ready for the post-game show. And I said, Jimmy, would you join us?
I mean, this is emotional, this is religious on the Gulf Coast. I was thinking of my mom and dad who passed away and all the Saints fans whooping it up in heaven.
Sean Payton comes up, brings the NFC Championship trophy, kisses Jimmy Buffett.
You know, this is part of it. What are you doing, man? Come over here, Mr. You got a suit on.
Get all these guys on here.
This would be the coach.
We're going to get Coach Payton here.
And all of a sudden we have live TV gold. It was the best moment of my career, certainly.
This guy is an original, not only parrot head, but he is an original who dat.
You know, Jimmy Buffett, Sean Payton and I were celebrating on CST. It was fantastic.
The decision to continue CST's Saints celebration all the way to South Beach was a no-brainer.
For Paul Crane, I'm Victor Howell. We will see you in Miami, some sights and sounds as we get ready to follow the New Orleans Saints to the Super Bowl in Miami. Good night, everybody.
We drove the CST production truck from here to Miami, set it up for the week, and did coverage there.
We were able to do 7 straight nights of live pre-Super Bowl programming from Miami.
The Super Bowl, I mean, that was the biggest thing in people's lives. How could you not go there and do a half-an-hour daily show? That's what people here live for. These are the special moments, and how do you not bring it to them?
It was still a major risk for us to think that we would be able to house live television from Miami, shouldering up with so many other networks out trying for their coverage.
And you got to remember, we've got people covering these teams every single day, so now you're bringing that realm of this is who we are, this is who we cover, and we're going to give you the inside scoop.
The Saints were huge in our success because I think they were as excited as we were, obviously, that they were there, but that we were bringing live coverage back on a daily basis.
But that's the passion Louisiana and the Gulf South region have for their teams. We brought the passion with us down there.
For that week that we were in Miami, it was everything as built.
For CST, the road to Miami had started in 2002. In the basketball-crazy town of Charlotte, North Carolina, where turmoil between their NBA franchise and the city set the Hornets on a course to take flight. Since the Jazz left New Orleans in 1979, the Crescent City had only known the blues, twice being left standing all alone after flirting with 2 other NBA teams. This time would be different.
The Hornets, when their decision to leave Charlotte and trying to make a decision where they were going, the city of New Orleans was very interested, obviously, and a lot of effort was put behind locally with the city and the politicians and various groups, and Cox was in line to help.
Cox Communications got involved in the negotiations. They needed a television outlet to help bring the Charlotte Hornets to New Orleans.
Hornets moved to New Orleans. The television contract with CST was, if it wasn't the most important, it was 1A with having the New Orleans arena available.
Looking back those 15 plus years ago, When our company made that decision to go full in, there's no guarantee that you're ever going to see a return, but Cox saw the importance of what a team could mean to this region.
There's no NBA in New Orleans without CST. It was a critical part of the business plan to get a professional basketball team from North Carolina to Louisiana. CST was a critical player in all that.
The Hornets came down, they had a place to play on television, and the rest, as they say, is history.
When they got the Hornets, that really made them, CST, a viable broadcast network in the eyes of the public.
And then really the next question was, is this going to be a regional sports channel?
We can start a regional sports network and be able to go after all these other great sports that we have in Louisiana and in the Gulf South, and that was the beginning of it.
It really all came together very quickly that this needed to be a regional sports network.
What does that mean?
A regional sports channel is a sports network that's totally dedicated to the region that it serves. This channel is dedicated for sports fans in Louisiana, dedicated for sports fans in the Gulf Coast.
The folks in Louisiana, it's truly a part of their everyday life, sports, and they want to know what's going on with the Saints, and what's going on with LSU, or what's going on with the Raging Cage, what's going on with the school in their area, or the team in their area.
The passion of the fans, the love of sport in Louisiana is special.
So we were able to bring these sports to people that hadn't had that wide distribution yet. I mean, you gotta remember, 15 years ago, the internet wasn't a big play. So we were able to bring the fans the events they wanted to see.
You can watch a national broadcast and they do a great job. But there are stories that you get from a regional that you would not get on a national. They just don't have the time to put into it.
If it has to do with Gulf Coast sports, you'll find it right here on Cox Sports Television.
What I found with CST is they have let the audience dictate their programming. A lot of networks might say, well, here it is, like it or leave it.
But to get the audience first, you have to get on the air.
I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I've launched a few of these. And typically you have a year, in some cases 9 months, but when you try to pull all of this off from an engineering standpoint to make this work, the fact that we had 2 months in itself is a testimony to some phenomenal efforts behind the scenes.
I started October 1st. Our first day was October 28th. We had no graphic looks, we had no producers or directors, we had no master control operators. So you had under 30 days to really ramp up this production.
Adding to the anxiety of the approaching deadline of October 28th was the fact that the launch would be carried live on Cox's existing New Orleans local station in front of a live audience.
We're here to celebrate something that's going to really be exciting for this entire region.
There was a big party in here, in this room, for the launch.
That great night where we had a tremendous event with a lot of team owners and conference commissioners and media actually here in this very studio celebrating the launch.
Welcome back. There's a party going on here. It's opening night, so to speak, for Cox Sports Television. An exciting night, an historic night.
At that point, we were all in another part of this building working on the technical side, going, okay, they're pushing this button at 6:30 no matter what, and we need to be on the air and running. To say that we were fully ready for that would probably be an overstatement.
We had a big button that we pushed that night, and while there were a lot of smiles around all of us on the publicity shot, there were a lot of sweating people behind the scenes.
Literally, we were back there going, okay, are we going to be there? We think we will. Okay, Rod, we should be all right. Rod would come back and check with us every so often, and we're all underneath different things.
Get ready to flick the switch and the turbos will start cranking, and then we'll do this. And then you know what happens after they push that button? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sports.
You know, when they pushed that button, you know, Bob Leonard, Brian Summers, our engineers were in there. We're still wiring just because, you know, you had to go on. Television, live television is a deadline-based world, and we had to be there. Were we completely where we wanted to be at? Probably not. So there was just always that little in the back, is this going to work?
We were nervous, but some fine folks behind the scenes that made that happen.
3, 2, 1, bingo!
They push the button. Here comes the tape of what's this channel going to be about, and from there on, we had launched a station.
You're looking inside the New Orleans arena, and after much work by many, many people and a lot of anticipation, Cox Sports Television has arrived.
When we hit the button to launch the channel, we wish we would have had about 6 more months of preparation, but thankfully, when that night launched and the channel came up, I'm happy to say 15 years later, that channel is still up.
CST is not only still on the air, it is now the leader in Gulf South sports.
We basically launched to an audience of about 400,000 homes. And now as we sit here 15 years later, what has really developed is that we now have carriage around the country. So we're available now to north of 5 million homes. And we really are very excited that this channel every night is seen across multi-states and regions and showcasing this great sports that we all know resides here in Louisiana and the Gulf South.
After CST's successful launch, the celebration was short-lived. In just 2 days, the network had its first New Orleans Hornets game to get on the air. That story, when CST 15 years and counting, returns. After CST's successful launch, the celebration was short-lived. In just 2 days, the network had its first New Orleans Hornets game to get on the air.
It was whirlwind, and you know what? That word kind of described the entire time that I was with the NBA team, because it never seemed like we had a seatbelt on. We were always moving from one place to another.
But it was so quick. It just like happened overnight. Meet with the producer. This is what we're going to try to accomplish, and let's go do it.
Now swing with me to the land of jazz, New Orleans, and NBA basketball is coming right up.
Everybody works so hard behind the scenes, in front of the camera, behind the camera.
We're underway. We're finally playing basketball in New Orleans for the first time since April 6, 1979. A regular season game is being played in the Crescent City.
There was just energy. That's the best word I can use. There was an energy in the building.
The crowd was phenomenal. It was packed to the rafters.
Now, New Orleans, get on your feet and greet your 2002-2003 New Orleans Hornets.
It's as loud a building as I had ever heard when the team was first announced. My ears were ringing.
It was just like we were playing again. That was like playing in the Final Four.
Barron with a behind the back to get rid of the defender. Jacks up a three.
It was like a college atmosphere. The excitement.
Baron Davis, outlet, Courtney Alexander.
There was so much anticipation.
We saw. That is a breakaway. Schrecter.
Oh, yeah. When that was all over, we just all took a big sigh of relief and went, we can do this. Boy, this is going to be great. And it really was.
Will not press things. It's over for game one. And a successful return of the NBA to the Crescent City of New Orleans.
I thought the fans deserved a really good product on the production side.
We just didn't have the rights to televise. We took pride in what those productions looked like night after night.
CST from the get-go, to me, produced the heck out of the games.
But I was impressed from day one with the quality of the talent that was behind the cameras, that was in the production truck, that set the tone for the broadcast.
Looking inbounds to West, buzzer beater! Oh, go ahead, David West! Go ahead, David West! David West for the third time this year! A buzzer beater for a Hornets win! Go ahead, David West!
It looked like a network game, but then you also had it from your point of view, from, hey, these are my announcers.
Doing a show at the Boston Garden right there on the the leprechaun at center court. I mean, that was like, wow, I can't believe I'm here.
Lakers up 51-42 here at the break. There have been 2 lead changes and 4 ties, and all of those came in the first quarter. We were the only ones in the NBA of 30 teams. We were the only one that did everything on location, every game, home or away, which made it very unique because we could give you that sense of here's what's going on.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
The Hornets had it going on with Chris Paul at the point.
Paul creates points out of nowhere as he was being fouled trying to score.
The thing that I think distinguished Chris Paul above all the other players who've ever played for the Hornets franchise is he made everybody around him better. That is a talent.
The All-Star led his team to 3 postseasons and the franchise's first division championship.
The Southwest Division, the toughest in basketball, belongs to the Bees.
That was a group that had a chance to be special. Not just a playoff team, not just we got past Dallas in the first round, not just we made it to Game 7 against the San Antonio Spurs. That was a team that could have gotten to the cusp of an NBA title.
They had some really, really good players, and they had that one magical season that was just tremendous.
For 10 years, those announcers and that production team and other reporters and show producers provided full court coverage of the Hornets when they called New Orleans home.
With 5, with 4, West against Ibaka, leans in, now falls away, bottom!
And the NBA was like a dream come true. I mean, played basketball, loved basketball, and be able to cover the Michael Jordans and the Kobes and the Shaqs and the LeBrons would be like a dream come true.
Look, it gave me the opportunity to be in the NBA. It gave me the opportunity to do basketball side, a game that I love, to start sharing it as an analyst and not just as a guy sitting on his couch watching it.
Streak has finally come to an end.
But all those moments led back to October 30th, 2002, when the NBA came to play on a fledgling network for the first time.
2 days after the launch was very close. Happy to say that first Hornets telecast went off like a charm, and we had 10 great years of a run with them.
To be able to do all that in 30 days, and that was just the Hornets. Hey, we need to start doing other things, you know. LSU's out there, the LHSAA's out there. You know, let's go get those rights. Let's start doing shows with that. We had none of that.
But that would change quickly. College, high school, and outdoor programming would remain a constant for CST. From the very start of Cox Sports Television, creating compelling content meant creating partnerships.
Hey, how are you doing? This is Kevin Frazier here to tell you that ESPN has teamed up with Cox Communication and Cox Sports Television to bring you the best in sports programming. You know, if it has anything to do with Gulf Coast sports, then you will find it right here on Cox Sports Television.
You won't see ESPNs and the National Foxes and some of these big people do a lot of stories on the Nickel States, the Tulanes, the Louisiana Techs, the UL Lafayettes, the McNeese State Cowboys, all those schools that are all within 2 hours of just where we're sitting right here. But when you find some of those good stories, you can bring those viewers to you because they're looking for it. Now they've got a place to find it.
With new partnerships, soon the location for college, high school, and outdoor programming was CST.
You know what? Those personal human interest stories are very, very important to many of our fans. And it's important to us because it's really about who we are as an athletic program.
I know we fought the issue of do we want television? Does television hurt attendance? And I think the answer that we learned is television is really an infomercial.
4 hours and you're the only game on Saturday night? What would that cost in advertising?
When fans and people across the region can see our athletic program, they really see a glimpse of our university, our campus, our student life.
It's kind of your front porch. You know, when you're selling a house, a realtor says curb appeal. Sports is kind of curb appeal.
And certainly anytime we can promote to a large audience that CST has is a great benefit to the conference, and we certainly hope that continues.
We're partners, and we're here to help grow the schools. We're here to give good publicity to all the schools that we're covering.
The schools of the Sun Belt are recruiting regionally for the most part. And so you're getting your programming into the hands of the very people that you're trying to convince to come to your university.
I mean, that opened up a whole new avenue for them. They can go into kids' homes now and say, oh, I saw y'all on that show. Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, if I come to your school, are we gonna have that kind of coverage? Yes, absolutely.
You can't pay for that. Nobody could pay for that.
I think what you see is now the league is starting to grow and starting to move up the pecking order among the other conferences. And a lot of that credit has to go to television, which not only told the story, but also aided in the recruiting of some pretty darn good future student athletes.
I think you just can't put enough value on what it was able to do. They can use it as a recruiting tool, they can use it as exposure for the program, and for CST, you're giving sports exposure that aren't used to it, but people like it. Now they had a place to go to actually watch it.
One thing that viewers were watching was something they loved doing. What was new was CST's depth of coverage.
Cox Sports TV, as far as their outdoor block, has really given the stage to the outdoorsman. Prior to that, it was very few TV shows that showed how to, where to, of hunting and fishing.
Hook back up. Oh, I got a big, God, the dog.
Night in and night out, those fishing shows still tend to be some of the more higher watched shows on our channel.
And you can see the theme. What are they passionate about? They're definitely passionate about their fishing, their hunting.
Or you see that bait blow up on top water with a big speckled trout. How can you not want to do that? You better check your pulse if you don't.
Oh, there he is! Oh, yes, indeed. Nice job. Awesome.
If you're a regional sports network in this region and you're not covering it, you're not covering it for the fans.
People love Cajun all over this country. They can't get enough of us, and they enjoy watching it. And something else a lot of people don't realize, there's an unintended benefit, not a consequence at all, that it brings a lot of tourism here to Louisiana. They see what we're doing. They see the kind of people we are, our heritage, our culture, the fun we have, the resources, and they want to do it.
No doubt in my mind, those outdoor shows and fishing shows will still play the major role the next 15 for us as they have the first 15.
In addition to outdoor programming, CST became the place for Olympic sports and women's athletics.
Well, there's no question that TV and Cox Sports Television has been tremendous for Title IX sports.
Gymnastics, women's tennis, women's basketball, track and field.
When we do track and field, or we do soccer or volleyball, to those schools and their fans, many of those sports are as important as ones that like football.
To get the local schools like Southeastern, Nichols, McNeese, we all have ties to these schools, and to be able to have those games on, all sports, you know, and then high school. CST has always done a wonderful job with high school sports, and you know, that's the backbone of the state of Louisiana.
High school football is huge down here. They have an outlet now to go watch big games and see what other people are doing.
Goes back to an early conversation with Tommy Henry, the commissioner of the LHSAA. If he was going to partner with a television entity, he had to be sure that this television entity was not just looking for a 2.5-hour window on a Friday night.
This is something we've been wanting to get involved with some way, and the medium just wasn't there, and now it is with Cox, and we're grateful for Cox for including us.
Well, the philosophy has always been with partnering with CST. It gives the students the opportunity of the exposure that they may not normally get. So anytime we can get student athletes the opportunity across our state to be visibly seen on some form of broadcast, in this case specifically TV, it's important for them, it's important for the families, it's important for the communities, and obviously as a partner with CST, it's important for CST as well.
I think it's really big for the families and the kids in the schools to be on a CST broadcast because it's their moment. And I think that they want the world to see their talents, something that they work so hard for. And obviously parents want that for their kids as well. You want your kids' talents to be highlighted. And I think that's one of the things that they do so well.
CST was also able to tell stories that had no score, no victor. Stories that were far more important than any game.
We just got to pick up the pieces. That's what I told them, pick up the pieces. And our motto was we'll never forget. We won't forget these four.
The coach had to put things together after, I believe, 4 of their students were killed in a car crash coming back from an LSU football game.
They would not want us to quit. They would never want us just to give up on ourselves, and especially them. You know, they definitely would want us to play the rest of the season as hard as we could.
You know, that was a hard one to do, but it was one that stood out on how the kids were resilient, how the coach has to be father figure, guidance counselor, mentor, but still coach.
The network was also there when coaches and teams would reach the pinnacle of achievement.
The agony of defeat, you know, and the celebration of victory. You see that because you see kids that just fall to their knees because they got beat, or they fall to their knees because they just won and they can't believe that they have done that.
It is in these championship games and in these high school students that the purest form of competition can be seen.
Oh, what a one-handed grab!
Last December in the Superdome, when we televised all of the high school football games live for the first time. And the fact that we were able to do all those games live last year, it all seemed to come together to me. I went back to an early Tommy Henry meeting of could he trust us to showcase, to a new agreement with the LHSAA and a new commissioner.
What we have in the state of Louisiana with CST is unique.
There was another Louisiana institution whose partnership with CST would redefine college sports broadcasting.
But there were these little wisps of rumors here and there of what else is CST going to do? And LSU, of course, was always in CST's mind as a potential partner and a big player in the programming for CST.
What LSU soon discovered was how regional network coverage could benefit all of Tiger sports.
LSU had never had that type of coverage broadbanded like that.
That if we were going to give an LSU fan a good blend of LSU athletics, it needed to cross to many different fields and ballparks.
Or in the case of D.D. Bro's gymnastic program, somewhere in midair.
And stuck the landing again.
We knew LSU's gymnastics team was top-notch, and that true LSU fans, this would be something that they, unless they were over at the PMAC, were not really going to have an opportunity to watch.
But for people like Dee Dee, people like Beth Torina in softball, they still need help in getting some TV time. And fortunately for me, Cox provided us 40 hours. That meant CST, that meant that it was going to go out over the state. And it would be shown many times over a month. And the next thing you know, you got them. And purple and gold, their favorite colors.
If LSU fans' lives would have been a lot different over the last 15 years if there hadn't been CST. You just wouldn't have seen as many games with any sport, you know, football, baseball, basketball, softball, you name it. CST has provided tremendous coverage to LSU fans across the state of Louisiana.
That coverage started with a women's top 20 matchup between the Tigers and UC Santa Barbara.
The very first game that Cox Sports Television broadcast with its agreement with LSU was that women's basketball game, and that turned out to be a whale of a game. One heck of a debut for CST programming at LSU.
Lynn Rollins and I get into the arena, and it's our very first time to do a ball game, and it's an instant classic.
There weren't just one overtime. There wasn't two, but there were three.
They didn't back into it. They didn't yawn into extra periods. There was something spectacular that happened, a miraculous shot.
It's over in 3 overtimes. LSU survives.
Triple overtime, we couldn't believe how this game turned out. It was such an exciting game. We kept thinking, boy, if this is the way it's going to be, we're going to have some fun. This is going to be great.
For all of Tiger Nation, the fun was just beginning.
I think CST absolutely played 100%. It was a big role, bigger role than Nick Saban or Les Miles did when LSU went in the national championship. It was tremendous timing, that's for sure. I think Rod Michler and Jeff Brenner must have a horseshoe somewhere because it worked out great for CST to come on the air. And there's LSU, really the decade of 2001 or 2000 to 2010, probably the greatest run for LSU athletics in the history of the school.
In the last 15 years, LSU has won 6 national championships in track and field. Its women's basketball team had reached the Final Four in 5 consecutive seasons, and the men's team took that road in 2006.
They went to the Final Four. It's the first time since 1954.
Nobody predicted that they would really do much in that tournament.
Hits the 24-footer that lifts LSU over the Aggies.
Knew he was going to make it. I just knew. We knew this team had a chance to do something special.
They had some talent on that team, but it was young talent. I mean, Tyrus Thomas, Big Baby Davis, and they did things that people didn't think they would.
The men's baseball team won the College World Series in 2009.
As the week went along and LSU was going on that run, you go to the College World Series and it becomes Baton Rouge North. It's insane.
That moment froze in time in my memory to know that we had brought LSU back to a national championship and put LSU back in its appropriate place at the top of the college baseball world.
And then there was Tiger football.
LSU football the last 15 years that CST's been on, it's really been the talk of the town. There really hasn't been a down year.
The run-up to national championships were not there. People didn't believe that LSU could win the national championship again.
We heard about 1958. Didn't know if it was ever going to happen again. And not only did it happen again, it happened twice in the same decade. It's just too hard to even imagine.
And when you consider it was 50 years between championships before that, but only 4 years.
The 2003 game was monumental.
We got great fans. We got great people in the state of Louisiana.
The 2007 journey just to get into the championship game was historic.
We enjoy playing in this arena. We enjoy playing in front of the state of Louisiana and the great people of LSU, I promise you.
The confetti's falling everywhere, and you really realize what you've done. You're the best team in all of college football, and it's just special.
You know, to be able to win a national championship and then play for a third national championship, that was incredible.
It's the best in the SEC West, and tonight one of those teams will take home the Crystal Football and be crowned college football's national champion. Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you with us for this CST special showdown on the Bayou.
And everybody knew CST. You know, you're going to be calling for CST, and that was exciting.
CST's partnership with the Tigers gave the network unrivaled access, including a full live-to-tape rebroadcast of games that had already been played.
How is this replay going to work? We all know the score. How in the heck is this going to work? Who's going to watch this?
Oh, I can promise you almost every LSU football player watched CST's replay of the game on Sundays.
It wasn't just the players, it was all of Tiger Nation.
They want it live, tape delay, give it to me 3 times tape delay, it doesn't matter.
You would hear people talking about, hey, did you see this on Sunday night? And God forbid you ever preempt a Wednesday replay. So remember, this is the 3rd airing of the game. The emails we would get, people were having watch parties around the replays. So it became very successful.
The truth of the matter was that it's been one of the most popular programming endeavors in the history of Cox Sports Television.
One of the many reasons for the replay success may have been the announcer's unusual style.
Half of it, I'm surprised he put it on the air.
Hotter than a Rolex in a pawn shop.
Wait a minute, did he just say that? We call them Rollinisms.
Hotter than a fire ant on a fever blister.
Lynn will get you into a game and he'll make a reference. I got nothing.
This game is tighter than the top string of a Texas fiddle.
I would hope that he would never teach me to do wacky metaphors. That is Lynn Rollins. I feel like I'd be stealing.
They're kind of fun. Some people like them, some people think they're corny. But as I say, I'm going to keep doing them.
It's not the standard, same old play-by-play. That's why I think Lynn Rollins is one of the best.
Thank you, and welcome to Tiger Stadium, everyone, where
2 of the biggest calls in LSU history have more to do with the game's impact on this community than on the standings. That story when CST 15 years and counting, returns. Sometimes a game is more than a game, and its mark is not left in a scorebook. Like the family tribute to an LSU standout who died at 21 due to a heart abnormality.
Well, I made a commitment when I first got here to do the Wally Pontiff Jr. Memorial Baseball game each and every year over in New Orleans.
Wally Pontiff Jr. probably was the epitome of a student athlete and the kind of role model that we want all of our student athletes to be. He was a great student, he was a great athlete, he was a great person.
Wally Pontiff Jr. was a kid who was, it's hard to say this, but he was perfect.
The Wally Pontiff Classic is a special game because, of who Wally Pontiff Jr. was.
His memory lives on in many, many fashions.
One of the key moments in Cox and CST is that game.
Another key moment was a football game that gave a state hope in the aftermath of a disaster.
We were going to play Arizona State in Baton Rouge. That game had to be moved to Tempe, Arizona because of Hurricane Katrina. We had teammates that didn't know the situations of their family members. They couldn't get in touch with them.
It was just a whole lot of raw emotion going on.
The weeks after Katrina, and LSU's campus was literally a triage unit.
Helicopters flying back and forth.
Less than 2 weeks off the worst natural disaster in American history, and there's a glimmer of hope here in the desert.
It was CST's mission to get that glimmer back to the Gulf.
Many people that worked the game that night literally were leaving their homes trying to recover after Katrina to go to Arizona and be a part of the production so that we could get it on the air.
There was a palpable emotion that this is a big deal. There was also the gnawing feeling that 24 hours from now, we'll be back to ground zero.
And all of a sudden, here comes this comeback, and then there's this drive.
Hope was being delivered on the arm of Jamarcus Russell on 4th down.
Russell gets his man, touchdown! Touchdown LSU! My goodness! Can you believe what you just saw?
A huge uplift to the state of Louisiana, and was a tremendous accomplishment by the LSU football team.
Maybe more than any other game I played, that one's always going to stick with me.
You think back, and it wasn't just the event that night in Arizona. So many people stepped up because they also realized the importance of getting these games, getting these teams back in living rooms.
And then the big question was, okay, what's going to happen to the Hornets?
I had no clue as to what was going to happen. I didn't know if CST and the Hornets were going to stop. I didn't know if the Hornets were going to go away. I had no idea.
They eventually agreed to go to Oklahoma City. They've got an arena. So at that point, it was a matter of, can we still show the games back here? I think once we learned, yes, you can still send the games back to Louisiana, you can show the games in Oklahoma, it was a no-brainer. It's a win for everybody. It was a time to give the people a little bit of healing, get back to normalcy, and it was just a great time to be able to help the community heal.
But those people in Oklahoma City really, really grabbed onto us and helped us. It was a remarkable experience, and it kind of shows you the fiber of what this country's all about.
Under normal circumstances, you need 8 to 12 to 16 months to get an operation started. They were basically starting a franchise in a month and a half, a month.
We all hoped, as great as Oklahoma City was, we all had hoped so desperately that one day soon we'd be back in New Orleans.
A little over 7 months later, the Hornets would bring hope back to the city.
Well, tonight is more than just a basketball game. It is a statement about a city that will not fail.
I was absolutely astounded at how quickly we were able to get back to put a game on.
Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you back to New Orleans, all you Hornet fans. I am Jordy Heltberg.
That was a situation where Louisiana was proving itself viable again.
Despite the loss, this is a win for New Orleans.
Oh, the city wins.
It was a great feeling. You actually believed that you were doing something very important for a lot of people here.
Another return home would let the world know New Orleans had risen and the Saints were coming.
The reopening of the Dome, September 25th, 2006, that's a day that all of us will remember forever. Biggest game of our lives. from just about every man in that locker room. Sean Payton did a pretty amazing thing for us that week. You know, the 2 days prior to the game, we will normally do a Friday practice here at the Saints facility, but he took us to the Dome, realizing that for many of us it was probably our first time in the Dome, and he wanted us to get in there and to feel it, to smell it, to kind of be in that moment. And then at the end of practice, he brought us all up, he turned off all the lights, and he played a video just documenting Katrina, fans talking about, you know, what they had been through, and that, you know, their single bit of motivation was just to be able to come back in the Dome and watch their Saints play football. And so we didn't see that as pressure or anything. We felt that as great motivation and great sense of responsibility to our fans to come back and knowing that a victory that night would do so much for the psyche of our city, that it would give people hope and inspire so many. And little did we know just the events of that night with Steve Gleason blocking the punt. I mean, that was probably the single loudest sound moment, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever been a part of. It was like a shotgun blast, and then the place erupted. It was like the roof just blew off.
What a moment, just listen to this crowd.
As a reporter watching that Steve Gleason punt, I've covered thousands of football games. I have never heard a stadium that loud in my life, and I have never seen a more emotional reaction from a fan base, ever.
Those emotions have only grown stronger between the city and Steve Gleason.
Steve Gleason's the heartbeat of the city. I mean, he represents everything the city's all about. You know, overcoming adversity, just representing all that's good. I mean, he's such an incredible human being. He was such an incredible teammate and a friend. And what he's been able to accomplish after being diagnosed with ALS, I mean, I really can't think of any person who could accomplish what he's accomplished. Steve and his soul and everything is all that New Orleans is.
What the Saints were to become started on that homecoming night with Gleason's blocked punt.
I think that was really the beginning of it all, and just that resurgence and that rebirth and just that feeling that, you know what, together we can accomplish anything.
3 seasons later in South Florida, the Saints would accomplish everything.
It's a beautiful night in South Florida. We're edging closer and closer to the Saints in Super Bowl 44. That's when you know that things are starting to heat up just a little bit more, because not only the teams practicing, but the halftime shows practicing. They've been going at it for about an hour and a half here behind us. And there's some pyrotechnics as we speak.
The real fireworks were all part of head coach Sean Payton's plan.
Look, he said a number of times during the week, hey, we have to find a way to steal a possession, and you know, ambush. The onside kick was, was the one, and it worked to perfection. So.
Well, you're talking about not afraid, Sean Payton. He said, big games, you got to make tough decisions. Great ball! The unbelievable decision by Sean Payton. Hell yeah!
In the fourth quarter, Breeze gave the Saints the lead, and then Payton called for 2. The Saints were now up 7.
But it's Peyton Manning, right? So you almost know he's going to take their team down and score. But man, then Tracy makes that play.
It was a fantastic conclusion. Don't know if you saw it. Tracy Porter had a pick 6. Saints won. It's good.
Wow!
As your New Orleans Saints have captured Super Bowl 44 here in Miami, and the party is on in the Big Easy.
This party basically started when Tracy Porter made that interception, and it is going to continue to the parade on Tuesday, and I think this party may go all the way to Mardi Gras. It is just a sea of high fives.
It's just amazing, you know, to be able to do it for a city that needed something like this. It makes it that much more special.
We had struggled with Katrina, and to be able to let all of that emotion go, I mean, because we were on top, we were the winners. No one can take that away from us.
To have the season we had this year and come out here and come back and win a game the way we did is an unbelievable feeling. I'm so happy for the city of New Orleans.
Congratulations, world champion. I like the sound of that. I love the sound of that.
The moment on the trophy stand, you know, holding the Super Bowl trophy, holding my son Balin, who had just turned 1 year old, and just sharing that moment with all the fans in the stadium too. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. You know, that was really a 4-year journey. You know, it wasn't about that team or that season specifically. I think it was the culmination of the 4 years, you know, from 2006, 7, 8, and then to 9. And so that moment was really about, you know, it was our city, it was our fan base, it was the Who Dat Nation, it was everything we had been through together, and now we had the opportunity to share in this glory and really just relish that moment. It was incredible.
You know, I saw Drew holding up Balin, and that's where it kind of hit me. You know, wow, not only they won the Super Bowl, Breeze is the MVP, their lives are going to change forever after this.
A victory parade in New Orleans would prove that point.
People in New Orleans, they've been to a lot of parades, but you would hear them say this is like no parade we've ever been to, or maybe a parade we never thought we would go to.
Are there parades outside of New Orleans?
I think there was 1 million people in the city that night, and it felt like it.
The highway patrol had shut the highway down. I mean, because it's just so many people.
It was incredible, just the amount of people and the emotion. Even today, it's just, it's amazing.
It was incredible. I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life, and it's just hard to describe that feeling, but just knowing that there was, again, such a connection with, you know, the people that were in the crowd.
Love you. We won that championship for you.
I was told from the moment I came to New Orleans that if you love New Orleans, it'll love you back. You know, when I came down here on my official visit, I guess we'll call it, you know, I remember Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, they all took me to Emeril's, and, you know, we're sitting at the chef's table and hanging out, but every person that I came in contact with didn't say anything to me about the Saints. They just said, thank you for being here, thanks for coming to our city. Yeah, football was football, and man, they love their Saints and everything, but man, thank you for coming and wanting to be a part of this city after what we've been through.
Everybody was waiting for the Lombardi, and where we were positioned right by City Hall, they stopped. And everybody was waiting just to see him hoist that trophy.
Putting his hand over his heart as he salutes the crowd.
You just wanted to be there. If you grew up in this town, and if you followed this team for any amount of time, you just wanted to be a part of it finally happened.
In this parade, it's 50 people deep on both sides. It was just crazy. And at one point, Sean jumps off his float with the trophy into this mass and sea of people, and I'm thinking, well, we'll never see the trophy again.
I think that Lombardi trophy is glued to his hand. He will not let go of that Lombardi trophy.
You know, there were guys that literally were partying for 3 days and, you know, just riding the wave of winning the Super Bowl, and why not? I mean, I would too, and I think a lot of us did.
Let's go to Mike Neighbors with Garrett Hartley.
Garrett, you're the man of the hour in New Orleans. How's this feel?
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Our fans, our city, this is our home.
That was the same attitude that CST adopted 15 years ago, to make New Orleans and the Gulf South their home.
It's great to have that type of trust with a group like Mike Neighbors and CST. Obviously, they make such a huge commitment to cover the Saints. You feel like they're our hometown, you know, group. They're the ones that can really represent, you know, what's happening with the Saints organization. And, you know, at times you get the tough questions, you know, but then in many cases have the opportunity to talk, you know, to the fans as well, and, you know, thank them for their support.
CST just deserves so much credit over this last 15-year period. It's just hard to imagine what it would have been like without them, I'll say. Wouldn't have been as good.
CST set the standard and showed how you can be successful, and now all these other schools are saying, well, wait a minute, why can't, and so the SEC network gets formed, and so it's kind of like everybody's getting this now, but CST was at the ground floor, and they did a remarkable job in 15 years.
Navigating the twists and turns of sports broadcasting, CST has once again created innovative programming like Game Day Live that make the network not only viable, but still must-see TV, or web or mobile viewing.
What CST's done recently with LSU Game Day, with Arkansas, I'll put our Saints show up against anybody. I mean, the fact that we have Deuce McAllister and Scott Shanley breaking down, you know, offense and defense for the team every night. We have our Drew Brees exclusive. CST's done a fabulous job of changing with the times and adapting to all the changes in this business.
We do shows that nobody else in this market, in this region are doing. We're doing an LSU postgame show that nobody else is doing.
LSU fans, Arkansas fans, you get a full hour. There are other pregame shows out there. They may talk about LSU, they may talk about Arkansas in a passing glance.
So now things ramp up because it's the SEC from here on out for the Tigers for the season. So let's focus on some of the individuals, and we're going to start with the man that Gordy was just referencing, that being number 7, Leonard Fournette.
What I love about CST's approach to LSU Game Day Live is that it's as in-depth an LSU football show that you're going to find.
And I think they take the regional broadcast to another level, be it the LSU Game Day Live or the Arkansas Game Day Live. The content that they're given is on a national level, and I don't think anybody else has that.
But I think there's going to be a place for the regional broadcast. I think it's going to expand from what it is today because, again, I think you can't get that exposure, and there's stories that you get from a regional broadcast that you don't get on a national level.
What hasn't changed is that if you have great, compelling local content, you will continue to be relevant regardless of what the platform is. That's what CST has.
How do you adjust? How do you bring what the viewer wants? And that's a constant game that you're going to play, and you're going to play that for the next 15 years.
No matter where the and counting of the next years takes sports programming, what is still clear is that the Gulf South has counted on CST to cover their home teams.
It's just been a great ride. We've been very fortunate, very blessed to have had the partners with us through thick and thin from day one. And again, I think it's those relationships, this great region of this country that showcases so many wonderful athletes and sports is why we've expanded like we have. And I think therein lies a lot of what will be the success for us in the next 15 years. And quite honestly, we can't wait.
It's Victor Howell. Let me mute this.
Balin points it out every now and then that he was the one who was present and held up at the Super Bowl after our victory, and so the other three, at least the other two boys, because they get it. They want to share that moment, and trust me, I would love nothing more than to share that moment with them. And that baby girl Rylan, she deserves that moment too. So we're gonna have to go get another one.
Do you remember what you had to eat at Emerald's that first day they brought you out, that Mickey and Sean took you out?
That's a great question. I do not. I do remember Emerald being there, and I just remember him coming up to me and saying, "Hey, if you sign with the Saints, I'll cook your first meal in your house here in New Orleans." So I do remember that.
Did you take him up on it?
You know what? I have not taken him up on that yet. So I think Emerald still owes me that meal. Emerald, you still owe me that meal. Well, this is good motivation though. After we win the next one, I would love for you to come over to the house and we'll have that meal.